Reince Priebus is the chairman of the Republican National Committee. Reince, good morning. Good to have you here today.
Good morning, Martha.
Good morning. So we spoke earlier with Marco Rubio. He says that basically if he doesn't win Florida, he is staying in this race. He thinks Utah and Arizona are good possibilities for him. We also heard from John Kasich just moments ago. He says that he's moving on to Pennsylvania after today regardless, but that he expects to win Ohio. So there's no sign that anybody's packing it in. Are we going to see a contested brokered convention here potentially?
Well, first of all, brokered is not the correct word, but you could use the word contested or open convention, multi-ballot convention. You know, look, it's possible. I think tonight is going to obviously be a pretty good indicator of that, and then maybe not even. It just all depends on where these delegates fall down the line, and you just don't know what intervening events can occur, and it's hard to predict the future, obviously. But clearly there's... Go ahead. Well,
let me ask you this. If two of these candidates have delegates and they don't release those delegates, how does that work? You know, how long can they hold on to their delegates? And if they see that Donald Trump isn't getting to 1237 and they want to prevent him from doing that, what are their options?
So, I mean, to answer your question, basically, if a candidate doesn't drop out, they generally hold on to their delegates, and generally the delegates stay with the candidate and are bound on the first ballot. Now, I say it generally because each state has different rules for what the delegate bound to each of the candidates, but it's safe to generalize and say that if a candidate doesn't drop out, they keep the delegates.
All right. So this is why you hear candidates talking about suspending their races.
Well, but a suspension, and if a candidate says they suspend, then their delegates are generally released and unbound. Okay. So the candidate can't say quit, suspend, you know, that doesn't work. They'd actually have to claim that they're not dropping out, we're in the race, and then the delegates stay bound. But any other kind of words about suspension or quitting, the delegates generally become unbound.
John Kasich also said today that, you know, he has no intention of getting onto any ticket with Donald Trump. Ted Cruz obviously is second in this race with his delegates. I guess, you know, the question becomes, what role do you play? What role does the party play? Because you hear people say, well, the party wouldn't put up with that, or the party will do this or that. It's not clear how much power the party really has in this process at all.
Well, I mean, the process, I mean, we don't have power to, first of all, even if we started saying you should get out or you should stay in, I mean, the fact is it's not up to us in Washington, D.C., nor should it be. It's up to the people out in the states and the delegates at the convention. So the power is that we set the parameters, we set the rules. Today we've got winner-take-all states because we set the rules. We set the parameters, we run the convention. But most importantly, what a competent national party does is that, you know, who's registering voters today in Florida? Who's hiring black, Hispanic, and Asian engagement employees across the country? Who is buying the data and building the database? That's us. So without us, we'll go through the embarrassment of not being prepared for an election to win on the ground and the mechanics. I mean, you want to know what we do? It's a lot of things to be prepared to win, and none of these candidates are going to be able to win without the RNC being prepared for the election. So that's what we do.
Yep, absolutely. Right. And it's quite clear, you know, it's up to the people and who the nominee is that they want to put forth. Now, these other candidates have all said on the debate stage that they will ultimately support the candidate of the party, but there are musings and rumblings that make it sound like they won't.
Well, look, I mean, I think that all of these candidates are true to their word that they will support the eventual nominee of our party. And we've always been able to come together. I think we will obviously have to come together, and there'll be time for that process to take place. So, you know, whether it's posturing or whatever, I'm not sure, but they've all given their word that they'll support the nominee. I expect that to be the case, but I don't know who the nominee is going to be.
No, nobody
does. And so none of us really do.
So if it's contested,
we really don't.
You know, when the last contested convention that produced a winner was FDR in 1932. So does it concern you, if it goes to contested, that it's very difficult to produce a winner for the general election?
Well, first of all, I think it's very difficult to use those kinds of statistics because, number one, it's so incredibly rare, and number two, you can't analyze that without understanding the politics about what was occurring around those scenarios. I mean, certainly, 1976 was a unique time in American history, and it really can't be used as an example of whether a contested convention works or doesn't.
Right.
So, right. So, yeah, that's right. It's a one ballot.
Are you concerned that you cannot produce a winner for the Republican Party if there's a big, knockdown drag out at the convention in Cleveland? That's the question.
No, actually, I'm not, because for one thing, we moved the convention 7 weeks sooner. I think if it were to happen, which I know is a hypothetical, that we have candidates that believe that they're on a pathway to the majority of delegates, so we're sort of hypothesizing here. But no, you can absolutely win. I think it would be enormously interesting. I think that the reviews would be off the charts. It would be a challenge, but I think it can produce enormous interest and ultimately a winner, because when you look at Hillary Clinton, look, I mean, her numbers are in the ditch, and Americans don't trust her. So I think that in spite of drama and intrigue, I think we're in great shape. All
right. Reince, thank you very much for explaining some of that to us. It's good to see you today, and you'll be watching as close as anybody tonight, I know. So we'll see you later. Thanks a lot.